We're going to jump right into it today, talking about sober living. It's not talked about enough in a lot of families. I get this all the time. How do I know a good sober living, and how do we pick one? And I can tell you, there's good sober living and there's bad sober living. And I myself, I went to sober living after almost a year of inpatient treatment. It was not the most accountable environment, but I had the willingness and the desperation to stay sober in spite of. But there is ways that sober living that I feel like is done well, and there are sober livings that I feel just maybe could use some improvements on, especially in today's age, the way addiction is taken off, and the different substances, the people are getting younger, and it's just the way society is. It just screams more importance of structured, well-run, sober living, what it's about, what it's not, the assets and liabilities. And I've got Josh Dikis from Impact Recovery Center. But we're going to jump right into it. This is the show, The Unbroken with Sam Davis. I'm your host, Sam Davis. Pleasure to be back with you all today. And I hope we can give you guys some insight on what sober living is and what it isn't. Josh, welcome.
Glad to be here, man.
Glad to have you back, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, so we're talking about sober living.
Yeah.
We don't hear about it enough. I get a lot of questions about that from families about sober living. And it's not just we'll go to sober living. Like, sober living to me is just as crucial, if not more crucial, than the initial inpatient stay. Mm-hmm. And I have seen, I used to run a sober living in Richmond. It was one of the most accountable environments in Richmond for men. And I would get I would take some guys that hadn't been to treatment before, and I would take guys that came from 30 days of the typical 30-day disease concept model. And there really wasn't a difference in the behavior between the two individuals. There really wasn't.
Yeah.
So it goes without saying that guys are not ready, or girls are not ready to enter back into the real world just right after 30 days. Mm-mm. And even y'all's intensive 35-day initial inpatient is high accountability.
Yeah.
It's structure. Mm-hmm. It's a 12-step immersion. They're going through the entire 12-step process. Tell me a little bit about what your sober living looks like. Well, I say sober living, your phase 2 sober living looks like, and how it's run.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I love how you keep catching yourself on phase 2, because one time I was with Adams and I said, our sober living, and he's like, no, it's not that. Well, it has its similarities.
Yeah, they're similar.
Very, very similar.
And I think that there's sober livings out here that could model themselves after
and
how y'all operate.
There's probably some that do.
That could benefit.
Yeah, there's probably some other places out there that do similar to our phase 2. And like you mentioned, when I'm talking to a family and they're talking about their loved one coming to Impact, like, I make sure that they understand, like, we can provide a solution in 35 days. Okay. But when we talk about the opportunity of long-term success, our director, Chad, like, at least a month of our phase 2. It's really set up for 2 months, right? But, like, at least a month gives you that much better chance. Like, and that's what you talk about, families always asking you about sober livings. Yeah, because they're always mentioned when someone's going to treatment. Always said, you need to do this, you need to do this, but there's never enough emphasis on how do you choose it. So I love this. But when we're talking about our phase 2, man, we're going in depth, right? Like, it's a step down.
How's it set up though? Like, because there's sober living homes.
Okay.
Like, my home in Richmond was, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I want to set like, hey, how's it set up? My home in Richmond when I had sober living was a home. Mm-hmm. It slept 9 guys, and there's plenty of room. We weren't packed in like mice. And then there's sober livings that are apartments. It'll be maybe a block of apartments where they're staffed 24/7 or what have you, or maybe have a house manager on site. Like, what is y'all's sober living?
We have
phase 2.
Phase 2. Yeah, thank you. We have a 7-unit apartment building that we built, and so it's a standalone. We own all 7 units, so all 7 units are used to house phase 2 guys.
Each apartment has a kitchen, 2 bedrooms.
That's right. One apartment has 3 bedrooms. The rest of them are one single bedrooms with 2 beds. Full kitchen, washer, dryer, the whole get up. Just like if you were going to go buy an apartment for yourself, it's going to have everything you need. It is staffed. One of those apartments has a staff member that lives there, right? And so that's what it looks like. It's in downtown Birmingham. So our phase 1 is out in 65 acres in the country. We're going to bring you back into reality a little bit closer. It's called Highland Park area of Birmingham. I didn't get a car too soon into my sobriety. Easy place to walk to get restaurants, walk to some meetings, just walk to a golf course, great location.
And they can work while they're there, right?
Not at our facility.
Okay.
That's a good question. I'm glad you
because
asked that.
there's different sober livings out here that at mine, the first 90 days you weren't working.
Yeah, that's probably
You didn't
smart.
leave unless you were in a van with us,
At ours, you are in a programming. I think this is the little bit of a differentiation between some of the standard sober livings. These guys, I was in programming, 6:45 wake up till about 4:30 most evenings, with some free time obviously in between. You go get lunch, come back for the group. We're going to take a deeper dive into the 12 steps at my place. So I tell families, and step 12, huge step. Got to carry the message. What happens to these guys, me being one of them, I get through the work, I've made a bunch of amends, I've lived this way, and now it's time to sponsor somebody, and here comes that fear. Mm-hmm. So we present the 12 steps while they're in phase 2. We're going to teach them how to teach it. So now I don't need to hear an excuse that I don't feel comfortable, because you've just sat here and you've taught it for 2 months, pretty much, over and over. We present them an opportunity to really have the groundwork of amends to be made. Right. That's one of the groups. And then as well as the clinical piece.
So they are in groups and they still have clinical. That's sort of the in other areas of the country, they would go to a typical sober living, and they would have IOP that they would have to go to, mm-hmm. or PHP, that they would partial hospitalization, that's every day. Mm-hmm. IOP is 3 days a week, right? 3 or 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. So you go and incorporate all of that in one big bundle with them. And when we look at what sober living is, it's the bridge between that little bubble of inpatient treatment where really a monkey could stay sober in inpatient treatment. It's that bridge, crucial bridge between inpatient treatment and the outside world. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of slowly releasing them into the outside world, and with oversight. Yeah, a lot of oversight. What y'all's oversight look like?
Yeah, we have, there is at least 2 staff members that are there throughout the day, right? So then we also have some kind of, like, some guys that have been around a long time kind of volunteering. They'll be up there. But, yeah, I mean, all day, all night, we, just like most sober livings, we're going to hit them with random drug tests, random breathalyzer. You got to step up your drug test game these days. These gas station drugs are coming out with, I feel like we got to buy a new panel every time we get a test. Right. But we're testing for that too.
Right. Can y'all pick up on everything? Is there any substances that gives you kind of a curveball in trying to pick out?
No.
You have the ability.
We have the ability to test it all.
Man, I thank God that I'm not doing sober living now, because I was doing sober living way back before all this new gas station crap started coming up everywhere. It's tough.
And I tell you what, too, though, and I think this probably stands true for your facility, maybe not all sober livings, but like when you create a community of guys that are getting well or have that platform presented to them, where the vast majority of them are, and even the ones that don't want to at our phase 2, like they're encouraged, and part of them being a part of phase 2 is to at least go to groups, be a part of where the community is. If you don't want to go work out, like we have an opportunity for these guys to go work out. Don't want to work out, go to the gym, hang out, walk around, be there, right? So you're kind of like forcefully, but not forcefully included in getting well. So like when you have that platform and the vast majority of them are trying, isn't it pretty easy to see when somebody's using again? Sometimes I'm like, I don't even need a drug test. Like, I know he is.
Yeah.
Let's look how he's showing up, right?
Yeah.
Some of these other guys, some of the other phase 2 guys are asking us, like, hey, do you know what's going on with him? Well, yeah, I'll show you if he pees in the cup. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a question. So it's pretty easy to tell. But the interesting piece about what we provide them, as you talked about, like the step down from the safety net of the bubble of treatment, they're not getting everything back at the same time. So these distractions, as we like to call them, positive and negative distractions. Family's a distraction when you're trying to get well, right? Like job is a family, but that's not really negative. You know, a crazy ex-girlfriend or girlfriend, that's a negative distraction, right? Looking at your finances is oftentimes a negative distraction. Like we're going to slowly get these things back included and involved in your life, right? And we have a process of doing that. One of the biggest things that I learned to do, and which now I'm like the man at our house that does it, is like cook. You know, you're responsible for your meals. Phase 1, you're not responsible for your meals. Yeah. Phase 2, you are. And
but do y'all, when they were in phase 1, do they cook?
They can't. We give them an opportunity if they want to cook the meal at dinner, but we have it to where patients never have to cook. Okay. But what we found is guys really enjoy that. You know, you got a guy that doesn't know how to cook and somebody who does, and they just kind of the community comes
life
together.
Skill.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for a life skill, which I think many programs dropped the ball on, an opportunity of presenting a life skill and teaching a life skill about cooking and buying groceries.
Yeah.
So with y'all's apartments, and you know, again, we're talking about, you know, good sober living or just talking about sober living in general. There is good and there's bad. There's homes that'll have 1 or 2 refrigerators. Yeah. The individuals are
write their name on it.
Yeah, required to buy their own groceries. So you end up with, you know, 9 bottles of ketchup and, you know, 16 bottles of mayonnaise and mustard, and you know, it's always a thing of somebody ate my celery or somebody ate my Japanese or somebody ate this or somebody. But y'all's a part, and then that's how it is in like a home. I was not just regular sober living. I was more along the lines of extended care. It was a very structured, very accountable environment. But I wanted to nix that, you know, ketchup battle and mustard battle in the butt. So we provided groceries and had menus and meal prep. And,
there's some place to do, yeah.
They had to take turns going to the grocery store with staff and learning how to budget, learning how to grocery shop.
Yeah.
How to get ingredients. How to prepare this. In order to prepare this, you have to get this and you have to do that. It's life skills. Now, I know that you guys have, you know, separate apartments. So each you know, trio or whoever's in the apartment has the refrigerator to themselves. Do they go out, or do you guys help them with budgeting, or is it?
Yes, we do. We have a whole budgeting group that we do with these guys. So I would say, and I might stand corrected, but I think it's like at least once a month, these guys have a full group, an hour of budgeting. And then what we also encourage them to do is to talk with their families. You know, we're so in depth. The phase 2 has its own set of mentors. Okay. So we have 2 mentors in phase 1 that are talking with families, updating them, giving suggestion, guidance, and coaching. And then the same thing stands true in phase 2. And when I was in phase 2, what my mentor was working with my family was stop giving him everything. Give him enough for what he needs. You know, my family honestly was like forced in a sense to give me a budget, because that's what Impact's mentors were telling them. He needs to learn responsibility. So quick example of that, my dad and I make a budget of X amount of dollars. So my dad says, so this means, Josh, you can't go buy $200 worth of shoes, okay? 4 weeks later, I have that $200 pair of shoes on while my dad's on the phone with me, and he's like, hey, man, how's your budget? Yeah, oh, it's good. It's good, Dad. It's good. Hang up the phone, guilty conscience. I'm living healthy, made amends to him. It was probably about 4 hours later, I call him, I'm like, Dad, I'm lying to you. Money's tight. Money's really, really tight. And here's why. I bought $200. He said, good, don't do it again. I expected this to happen. Jacob and your mentor, they told me this kind of stuff would happen. Let it happen. Hold them responsible. Don't let it happen again conversation, right? And it never did, right? And I think that is a big portion to play with phase 2, giving me that platform, giving my family that platform to say it's just fine for him to be without everything. You know, a lot of families that we see, guys come in, they're entitled, right? But like, you don't just wake up entitled. There's a family dynamic that provides you so much and so much and so much, and they need to understand that they don't have to do that you're going to be just fine. You're going to have everything you need.
That you're capable of standing on your own and acting out of integrity.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That you're able to do that.
Very important piece.
Raise the bar, raise the expectations. Now, one huge asset of y'all's program is that your step down is all the same guys that one individual goes through the intensive inpatient is going to go into the phase 2, or what I would consider sober living, structured sober living. Sorry about that, Adams. But they know each other.
Yep.
They know each other's strengths. They know each other's manipulation. They know each other well enough to know when somebody's not right, and they hold each other accountable. They're like a brotherhood that goes from the inpatient into the step down, which is crucial to me. Most programs out here, and again, I want to make it clear, is like y'all's is highly structured, accountable. It's not something that someone's just going to be able to come to you all without having gone through your initial inpatient. Like you have to go through that. It's just an extension of y'all's program. But most programs that don't have sober living attached, like they make referrals out to whatever town they're in or whatever community they're going back to, or maybe someone in the local community where the treatment program is situated. And then they're going into this sober living and have to meet new people, start all over again, and it opens up a window to where they can manipulate the system, manipulate the family, and really slide through the cracks. And that's when you get into, I'm not going to call it bad sober living, but just like treatment centers have different levels of care, sober livings are the same way. There's the Oxford House, where it's democratically run. They vote people in, they vote people out. They vote in the house manager. The house manager may have 30 days or 60 days of sobriety or 90 days of sobriety, depending on house to house. Each house is run democratically. So an Oxford House in Richmond, Virginia may vary than the Oxford House in Northern Virginia or an Oxford House in Alabama. They're priced to where the individual can, what are they, like $125, $140 a week or $130 a week, where the individual gets a job. They have it's not as structured and accountable as some other sober homes, but they work.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're just unable to, the way they're operated and situated and built is that they're not able to be consistent across every house. So one Oxford House you go to here may be different than one in Birmingham, Alabama. Maybe run a little bit differently. And then there's sober livings that, are $150 a week, or $160, $170 a week, that has house managers. They don't have staff members.
Right.
And that's when you can get into, man, if they're packed in there like mice, you got to look at, like, and if you want to ask, like, what is the house man? How long have they been sober? Like, what are the rules? Man, the sober living that I went to, they were like, I mean, look, man, it worked. All right, it worked.
Yeah.
But they were packed in there, and I went home for a visit, came back. They had rented my bed to someone while I was gone, just for the time that I was gone. And he took my bed, like a staph infection or some crap. And I had this blanket that got out of a U-Haul trailer. It looked like it could have covered the whole house. You know what I mean? Those moving blankets.
Yeah.
The house manager would come out with no shirt on, just, scratching his belly hair and stuff. This room looked like a disaster.
Yeah.
There wasn't modeling the behavior that you want out of a man. Right? Out of not just a man, but out of a man of integrity, a man of clarity, a man of sobriety, a man of recovery. So would I call that a bad sober living? No, I mean, I think it could have been managed a little bit better. But then there's bad sober livings where they don't drug test shit.
Yeah.
They don't, there's no accountability at all. There's no chores. You walk into the house, it stinks. It's filthy. You go into their rooms, their beds are not made. Their rooms are not clean. There's food and drink all over the upstairs or whatever the bedrooms are. They can do whatever. Man, I was able to have a girl over where, I mean, you know what I mean? And she spent the night in the couch, right? She was sniffing poots out of the seat of the sober home couch. You know what I'm saying? And like, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. And it shouldn't have been okay.
Right.
But.
And when you look at it, like, oftentimes there are individuals that come through Impact that more than likely it's the family that is like, okay, where does he go next? Like, usually, like, what we see is the family's not ready for him to go back to whatever was normal or any of that. We will send these guys to kind of what a more traditional sober living is. But like you're talking about, we will find out. We will do the hard work for these referrals out that we make, right? What is the role of accountability there? What is the expectations of these guys on a daily basis? If they are working, are you helping them get a job? What is your requirement for a job? I remember I was at a sober living once where somebody was working part-time at like a meet and three. They get up, they go do breakfast, and then they're back home at like 12 o'clock because they just did like quick breakfast, a short lunch, maybe it was 2 o'clock, and then they're done for the day. Well, then if they do come back from work at 2 o'clock, what are they doing then? Are they just sitting there watching TV? You know, like that's not what a man is going to do. Do they have any sense of responsibilities? Is there a cleaning chore list, right?
Yeah, which is important.
Yeah.
And all that comes down to a really good house manager. Like any family that's looking for sober living for their loved one, I would encourage them to talk to the house manager, get a feel of it. Your gut knows. Your gut always knows. Now, in my regular sober living, I had a house manager that if they left dishes in the sink, he was a contractor. He was a house manager. Like he had his own job, but he was in charge of the house. He was in charge of the house meetings. He was in charge of the accountability in the home, the consequences in the home, the testing in the home, and he was a good manager. And he said, "I'll tell y'all what." He said, "I'll have this dishwasher out of this house in the next 10 minutes, and it'll be out in the shed, and y'all will be hand washing all these dishes from here on out."
I get it.
You know, if we didn't have, if their beds weren't made, if their rooms weren't tidy, the TV was gone for the night.
Yeah.
We had a quick
great.
release on that TV, man. Like we could take it off the wall, lickety split.
Yeah.
You know, or we'd get them on. We'd put them on restriction. You're housebound for the weekend.
Yeah.
You know,
I get it. I'll
deep
never
cleaning. We'd have a deep clean.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to say. I do a lot of cleaning at my house, not for any reason other than I'm a member of the family, right? Like I can't expect someone to do it for me. You know, my mom did it for me for X amount of years, and then even at a young age, I was still doing it. She was probably cleaning behind me at 9 years old, but like these are things that we are taught by our parents. So like we have missed that window of opportunity of incorporating it. And if someone isn't holding us accountable to do these things, guess what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it. So then when I get back into the real world, I'm living in a pigsty. There's nobody that lives successfully in life whose house looks like a dumpster. You know what I mean?
Our outsides reflect our insides. When my vehicle out there that you came in here in, look, I got a deer stand in the back. Got a couple bags of corn, you know. But other than that, it's neat in there.
Yeah.
It's neat, right? My insides are pretty good right now, right? My home right now, pretty good. But I can walk into a sober living because my insides are pretty good right now. Now, that'll change.
Yeah.
That'll change. Long about January when I walk outside and it's like 30 degrees outside and getting dark at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what life's all about. You know what I mean? That seasonal depression slip in a little bit, maybe get off my game a little bit. My outsides are going to look a little messy. But when I was in active addiction, my whole life was a dumpster fire. Every bit on the outside. And I could walk into a sober living today, and I can tell the energy in that sober living by looking around and looking at the beds.
Looking at it, yeah.
I can tell who's doing the work and who isn't.
Yeah.
By not even seeing them, by seeing the beds.
I think it's important because I went to a place that we would do deep cleans, but it was like really just daily cleans. I felt like it was a deep clean because like I'd never cleaned so much before. You know, daily, kind of keep something up. But I tell you what, I learned how to clean at that place. I learned what it meant to lift items off of counters to clean under them, not around them. You know what I mean? When you vacuum, get everything off the floor, put it back. Like I clean now. And I take pride in it after. The only thing I used to take pride in after was cutting grass. And that was because everybody saw it.
Yeah.
You know? But you go inside the house now, after I clean, like it is clean. And that was because at the sober living environment that I went to years ago, it was ingrained in me. You know, just like you go to a sober living, they don't have to be 12-step oriented. They might not even suggest guys do 12-step. Maybe it's PHP, IOP, clinical, something. But there is a way to hold these guys accountable, to be responsible for what and how they can improve their life. And just like you said, talk about the house manager, talk to the guy who owns it, talk to as many people as you can to get an understanding of what's being. And that's what we do when we send a referral out. You know, we're going to send them to the place where everybody's like the place I'm talking about in Birmingham that I went to. The owner was on his hands and knees cleaning floors and stuff with me. You know what that showed me? It's okay to do that.
Yeah.
It's okay to be there with the kids and tell them to clean their room and be up there doing it with them.
Yeah.
You know, being a part of showing everybody what, like you keep talking about, a man of integrity is about.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to live in stage character anymore. But when you go to some of these sober livings, it's almost like you have no choice but to be a stage character.
Yeah.
You know, and there's places that you can go to, and that's not relevant.
Yeah. You know, there's different, I think it's important for families to know there's different levels, you know, like y'all's phase 2, which is by anyone outside looking in, it would be y'all sober living, right? Structured sober living. That's most individuals themselves, or those tend to be more expensive to get into. They're going to cost you more because they are staffed by staff, not just a house manager that gets a free room. It is by trained, qualified staff that has oversight on these guys. You have groups. You have planned day. There is freedoms, but it's limited. They get the taste of their phone. They get the taste of the car. They get the taste of being able to walk about and do a bite and get a job a little bit. They don't work at all at y'all sober.
Not at ours.
Not at all. So that from you would be the middle ground between inpatient treatment and regular sober living, right?
That's
that for that individual that, man, if you've got a loved one out here that's gone to 30 days and gone to sober living, it's just repeat, and is not able to maintain sobriety, that there's a critical piece of that middle ground of between inpatient treatment and your regular sober living. And by regular sober living, I mean you pay a weekly rent, there's a house manager, they have a house meeting once a week, you're required to go to so many 12-step meetings, have a sponsor, get a job, provide your own groceries. They're on your lower scale of cost. And they're on your lower scale of accountability.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not that some of them are not accountable.
Right.
It's just that there's not the oversight that is there when there's, like when I had extended care sober living or structured sober living, they were staffed. They left when they were in a van with all of us. They didn't get their car. They didn't get their phones. And then it set them up to step down into regular sober living.
Yeah, because like after that regular sober living, like we're talking about, that it can be done in a very highly accountable way, very goal-oriented, very structured way. That's out there. So like the only option after that we're talking about is living by yourself, back with your family, back under. I don't ever suggest back under the roof of your parents.
I don't either.
But if it's like my dad told me, you can only live with me for 2 weeks, and that's while your apartment's getting ready, right? Like that's it. You're not moving in,
right?
You got a gym bag at my house, you know.
Right.
But that's sober living that you're talking about. That's like after us is kind of the last stop. There's nothing else other than doing this in your own life.
Absolutely.
You know?
So families, and Josh, thank you for coming in here today and talking about sober living. I don't think it's talked about enough, and I get that question a lot about that. They're just, you know, in the dark about sober living. So I don't think they're all the same, and they're not. But it's a crucial piece of someone's journey outside of treatment, very crucial. But families, look, if you're looking at putting your loved one in a sober living, here's some questions to ask them. Like, hey, if there's a house manager, talk to the house manager. Get a feel of the house manager. You're the one paying initially. You get a say. Ask about what does your daily schedule look like? What are the rules? How often are we drug tested? Or how often is your loved one drug tested? Will we be kept in the loop of their progress and be given recommendations of how we can do things differently? What is the policy if someone was to pick up again and use again? Man, around here in this area, unfortunately, I got to say that they'll just ship people back and forth between sober living and sober living. To me, if an individual picks up again and relapses and is clearly by their behaviors that they're not able to maintain sobriety at that level of care, they're showing me that they need a higher level of care. And I would always refer back to inpatient treatment or more structured inpatient treatment than where they came from. But this bouncing around from sober living to sober living is just it's a bad energy to me. It just doesn't work. And I mean, life is in the gray. I've seen it work, but more times than not, it doesn't. And just dig deep, guys. You know, search around. You know, sober living to me was like a college experience without the drugs, booze, and the crazy women. Well, I can't say the crazy women, but you know, and the women say that about the crazy men. You know, I mean, it just kind of goes hand in hand. But it was, God, I think back on that all the time, of the freedom that I had there. But sober living, guys, sober living done right, Impact Recovery. This episode was sponsored by Impact Recovery Center out of Birmingham, Alabama. 14 bed men only facility, almost 65 acres of farmland. Beautiful, beautiful little area. And then their phase 2, which I call sober living, Adams may not approve, is their step down phase in the apartments down in downtown Birmingham, in a great area of town. And if you think they'd be a fit for your loved one, please check them out at www.impactrecovery.net. And that's it for us. If you like what we're hearing here, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and we're going to see you next time.